Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdicus Dave, and today I am joined by Ted from Nerd Immersion. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing as best I can in the world that we're in right now. So,
everyone's everyone's just living that best apocalypse ever, or,
exactly.
or trying to. But hey, at least we have gaming. We can still roll funny shaped dice, whether they're physical or virtual.
Sure.
So, have you found with everything going on that you're gaming more or less?
I'm gaming about the same. It's easier to get people to go past like a time limit when we were getting together physically. Everybody's coming over on a night after work, and then people are like, it's midnight. I gotta go. But now it's
Yeah.
just like I can stay on for another hour. No big deal. I'll just log off and go to bed.
Yeah. Well, it is easier in the sense that like no matter what your commute is, if when it goes down to zero,
Yeah, sure.
it's a big deal. It definitely helps. I mean, even like when I would game at Tez, it's like 30 minutes each way, so I just gained an hour. That's an hour longer we could game if we want to.
Right, exactly. So it's definitely been a thing, although I have found that we're less likely to start on time
Yeah.
when we're like all online, haven't spoken to each other, and we're all hanging out, where they'd show up early and we could like chat before the game. So
Yeah. Well, I feel like you just factor that in. It's like, all right, well, if we're gonna start at X time, maybe we get together a little earlier, or we just know we're gonna start a little later. I think that
mhm.
time's important anyway. I feel like even like gaming in person, we'd always have like an hour buffer easy of just like catching up, talking about shows, whatever.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's the problem when I used to do like kind of monthly games with my college friends. We'd all get together on a Friday night and we'd lose the whole first hour, half of the day just chatting.
Yeah. Well, it's not really a loss. It's just like you game for different reasons, and one of those reasons is the social aspect. It's like I don't like sports ball very
Hmm.
much. I don't really, I'm not really a drinker or a partier. Like this is the thing that I do when I'm around my friends.
Sure.
So so part of that is just the social aspect. And for a long time, when our game would kind of like our group would like wane, wax
Hmm.
and wane, we'd we would still get together, but for a long time it was just more about like hanging out with your friends than it was the game. It's just the thing we do when we get
Sure.
together.
Definitely.
uh, how do you feel being locked in has affected your content creation? Because I know you put out a lot of videos.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a daily video grind at the
Yeah.
moment. Um,
Daily,
which
it seems like you do like several videos a day.
so yeah, okay. I guess you caught me on that one. I definitely my goal is to try to put out a video a day, but I've learned depending on the content, certain things like I might have a planned video, like a Tuesday is going to be a top 10 video, but then like Wizards will be like, boom, unearthed Arcana, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
crap, now I got to go make a video on that because it's brand new.
Yeah.
And certain things when it comes out, like it's best to cover it immediately. So I try to do daily content or sometimes more than that. But being home definitely helps because, again, I don't have a commute. I can just find time in the middle of the day to just square off 20 minutes to make a video and then hit edit and then go back to work.
Yeah, I feel like we used to put out a lot of content. Now I feel like you're crushing us. We used to do so. There was a time where we were doing like we would do 2 videos a day and a live chat. And
That's a lot, yeah.
yeah, oh, I'm so glad we don't do that anymore. Well, when we switched to the 3 camera shooting, things became a little more complex, so
Sure.
the editing was a little more difficult. But yeah, filming, we would film like 10 to 12 videos a week.
Mm.
Um, the 10 that we were going to put up, and then maybe a couple just to have a couple extra just in case. And that was grueling, and I don't miss that at all. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, maybe at some point it kind of started off too. So I was still doing videos sporadically, kind of leading up to the pandemic, and then that kind of became my push to be like, hey, everybody's stuck at home for the most part, right? Let me see if I can give you something to distract you from what's going on by giving you some form of content every day. Maybe when this is all over and I have to go back to a physical office location, I won't be doing daily videos. Um, but it also, in the meantime, is a great way to be like, look, I'm here. Hi, I'm I'm staying relevant for a while, and then maybe I can back off after I kind of build up more of a fan base.
It also makes you better. Like it's like anything. The more you do it, the better you
Sure.
get at it. So, there's definitely a an upside to the push too. You're just gonna hone your craft. It's like anything.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
funny when people ask me about doing YouTube, and I'm like, well, you're doing D&D YouTube or RPGs YouTube. I'm like, well, here's all this stuff that has nothing to do with RPGs that you should probably go learn.
Yep, there's a lot of it. Yeah. And I mean, it's also, I mean, let's be real, you and I both know this, the RPG, YouTube, D&D specifically space, it's only so big.
Yeah.
Like you're only getting so like if you're a gaming channel or like a variety channel, you have a lot more people you can reach. Like this is a specific set of content. You're coming here for D&D and it doesn't apply to everybody. So,
Although I will say it is much bigger than I first, when we first started, and it's growing.
sure. Oh
Like
yeah, definitely.
when we first started, the idea of getting to 100,000 subscribers was like astronomical. It's like
Hmm.
I don't know, like we could do that maybe, but that's definitely the ceiling.
Yeah.
And now there's like at least half a dozen channels, not counting Critical Role and Matt Colville, that have
Yeah, well, right.
that have blown by 200,000, and a couple of them are closing in on 300,000. And I think in Critical Role their numbers are astronomical, and Matt
Hmm.
Colville's way up there. So it's
Yep.
cool, like to see the space be like just like blow up. What I thought was the ceiling is way out there now.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely wish I had taken my wife's advice 5, 6 years ago and decided to focus my content on something specific,
Yeah.
and D&D specifically, because that would have been a great time to get into it, but I didn't. I was like, no, I'm going to do everything, and well, here I am doing D&D content. So,
Yeah, we started off the same way, and it's like, but we got lucky because 6 months in, the basic rules dropped,
yeah,
and the audience kind of told us what they wanted us to talk about. By looking at like we were like, oh, I guess we should talk about this. It's a thing. I didn't even know I didn't even know about D&D Next.
yeah, me either.
I wasn't paying attention. We were playing other games,
Hmm.
and it just dropped, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I really like this, and so I pitched the guys. I was like, hey, you guys want to look at this and talk about it? They're like, sure. And then like that's all anybody wanted. I'm like, I guess we're a D&D channel now.
Yeah, I
Which
mean,
is fine because that's like where my passion lies anyway.
yeah, no, I was the same thing. I was doing video games, and I was doing, costume and prop tutorials, convention coverage. I did a cooking show for a little while,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's all still on the channel. You can go find it if you really search way back in the day. But yeah, it was pretty much I was doing 3.5 consistently, and then like I don't even know how I found out that the starter set was coming out. Like
Yeah.
I don't remember if I was on like random forum, YouTube page, I don't know. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is coming out. And I like drove to a local game store that I'd never been to. And I like picked up the box and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then, here I am. So,
Yeah, I know it was 4th of July weekend.
yep.
And I feel like, like you said, was it a forum or something? It was just the basic rules too. It wasn't the starter set. It wasn't,
Mhm.
the books weren't out yet. And either I saw something either on Facebook or Twitter, or I was on a forum, I don't even know, downloaded the rules and was like, oh, this is cool. And because at that point, like, we'd played 4th edition for a little bit,
Mhm.
a year, 18 months, and we're like, and then like something distracted us. Like, I'm not even, like, I'm kind of indifferent towards 4th edition.
Mhm.
I don't, like, Ted doesn't like it. Like, his thing is it didn't feel like D&D. It doesn't like, it's his thing is it's a good game. It's just not a good D&D game. I was indifferent, but we started playing like superhero games, and which led me to look for a better superhero game because one of our friends had pulled out Heroes Unlimited, and I just didn't like.
I remember Palladium, man.
Yeah.
What do you?
It's so like it was so 80s and dated
Mhm.
and unbalanced, and I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather play Marvel Phase Rip if I'm going to play a Supers game. And
Yeah.
that game had been dead for quite a while already. And so I started poking around, and I found 2 games: Champions and Mutants and Masterminds. And I was like, well, our group knows D20,
Sure.
so we'll take a look at that. And what we discovered was we could like play any genre with that game,
Mhm.
and so we did.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really have any experience with fourth other than like every time I went to Barnes and Noble, there was like 16 new books on the shelf. Every time I like turned around, I was like, wait, Monster Manual, like there was a book for every player class. And I was like, man, this feels like, and I think I flipped through a player's handbook to try to like, because I was like, oh, I love Druid in 3.5. And I was confused when I read through it in fourth. And I was like, this isn't my same Druid.
Yeah.
And then that was basically the extent of it.
So in the chat, there's a cry for a TED off.
Okay. All right.
There can
Well,
only be one TED.
I mean, we can. I guess when we're able to finally meet up, we can have our Highlander showdown.
Yeah, we can see who's more TED. Well, Ted used to do Arma, which is Western martial arts, but like sword fighting and stuff like that.
Well, then he probably is gonna, he could definitely beat me in that. But I'm a homegrown from the age of 2 on an Olympic track archer, so maybe
nice.
I just got as long as I got the distance, we're good. But once we get up close, then I think it's all out. Yeah, he's got me.
I was going in a totally different direction though. I always try and get him into death matches with people. He does not appreciate it. Look, come on, Ted, you got this. I haven't touched the sword in years. It's like random like. Thomas wants to know: is there a story behind the title Nerd Immersion?
So funny enough, when we were talking, I was, I had been doing a podcast with some friends for my MMO for a while, and I was like, towards the end, the MMO is still going strong as Guild Wars 2, and I was like, I would love to talk about other games, because I think we were doing a podcast, and at one point we just went on a divergent tangent about some other game, and I was like, man, I really want to do my own thing to talk about other games. I need to come up with a channel. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to call it. What should I name it? What should it be after? And my wife was just like, Nerd Immersion. That sounds good. It's you're a nerd. It kind of covers everything. And I was like, damn, that's pretty good. All right, let's go with that. And that was it. That's the whole story.
Do you have the domain name for that?
For Nerd Immersion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the reason I asked is because like when we started Nerdarchy, the reason we landed on Nerdarchy was we could get the domain name for it. We went through every version of Nerd and Geek, it seemed like, on the planet before finally finding, 1, something we liked, and 2, something we could get the domain name for.
Yeah, that was part of it too, as I was definitely like, all right, let me look up Nerd Immersion on Google. Does it exist anywhere? And there was things about nerds and being immersed in things, but Nerd Immersion was not anywhere. And I was like, boom, get the domain, make the YouTube, make the Twitter, let's do all the things. And that worked out well.
Yeah, I regret that we don't have a recording of all the names that we came up with.
Yeah, I mean, now might I have, had I known what I was going to be doing now, would I have made the channel possibly more RPG D&D sounding? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But we're this far in, I'm not going to change it now.
What do you think? When do you think we'll see a 6th edition? What are your thoughts on that?
2024, 50th anniversary. That's what I'm calling.
Ah, nice. You know what? That's a good number.
I think they did. So I think 4th was around the 40th or the 30th. Like it's not perfect. But, we just had the 45th anniversary, right? That was last year. And I think 40th anniversary was right around the 5th edition timeframe.
Okay.
So if we see a 6th or a 5.5, I know there's a lot of discussion going on about these new books possibly coming out, having, swappable character traits and, removing the true hard, fast things about races and classes. Maybe that's 5.5, but I think you're stupid to not do something with the 50th anniversary of the game. Like, whatever you're going to do, that's going to be, I think, the big announcement is it's 50 years of D&D. It's now D&D, whatever, 5.5, 6th edition.
And that would make sense. I mean, that's a 10-year run on it.
Sure.
So they can't say, like, it'll be harder for people to go, like 4th edition, they bagged that fairly quick. I think in comparison to the previous editions.
Yeah, and I mean, like some people in the chat are saying, and I've heard this because I've brought this up with a bunch of different gaming groups that they feel like fifth edition still has life in it, and from a Hasbro marketing standpoint, it's still making money.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. We don't need to introduce a new edition or something new to be like, let's jump the sales back up because D and D's not making us money because it is. So
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if they've been investing a lot in new player acquisition too, so
sure.
that definitely helps prolong the life of the edition. But I will say, PAX first PAX, we did talk to somebody that is a fairly reliable source, and
Mm-hmm.
even then they were talking about sixth edition. So
Yeah, I mean,
internally,
sure.
but yeah, obviously they're probably working on it out laterally, where
Yeah.
it's like they're going to be ready once 5e starts tanking, and they're like, we need to boost sales, and it's going to be a new edition. So, but
Yeah.
it's weird though. Like they're like Wizards is kind of in a bit of a predicament if you think about it. Like it's tiny in comparison to Hasbro, right? Like the D&D line.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
like my greatest fear with D&D is like it becomes not profitable and they just shelf it. Like a company like that can do that.
They
Like,
can do that, yeah.
easily, and they don't have to worry about, like if it was a smaller company and it wasn't profitable, they would sell it.
Sure.
But a large company like that would be like, I don't know what we're gonna do with this. Let's just put it in the closet, and then
Yeah.
you have no D&D.
So I went to the one and only HasCon. I don't know if you went back in 2017, the Hasbro convention.
I did not. I was close to going. I was very much considering it.
So I went to it. I went on a media pass. I was there doing stuff, and let me tell you, the D&D section was very small, like in the grand scheme. Like it's Transformers, Star Wars toys, all of our board game lines, My Little Pony, Trolls, and like tiny little section where Greg Tito's standing at a little thing with some dice on it and like some Tomb of Annihilation standees.
Oh
And then
wow.
like a big section for Magic the Gathering because Magic the Gathering Arena was being demoed there because that was new.
Yeah.
And it's like tiny little D&D section. There was no real like games going on. They didn't have like stuff to do. Like it was very small. So like if that was any indication back in 2017, Hasbro's like, look at all our big flashy things we can get the kids to.
Yeah.
And then also there's D&D.
So we had a friend who was always banking on the movie, like which we're all still waiting for. Which is like the movie's a double-edged sword, right?
Yep.
If it's good, if they have a repeat performance, it's going to hurt. If if they do something really cool, it could be good. And I don't even know what that is because I really like at first I'm like, should they just tell? I used to think maybe they should just tell one of their more successful stories and make it just a movie. But then that's not really D&D.
Right.
So do they go the gamers route? Like I used to be like dead set against that, but I've kind of like come around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we also live in a world, right, where Critical Role is like people watch that like they watch TV, and I don't think you don't want that when you're watching a movie. I think an animated movie is really the way to go. They did that Dragonlance animated movie a while ago. It was okay, and I mean, we have this Critical Role animated series coming
Yeah.
out at some point, so I think animation may be the way to go over live action. But like, I remember the original one with Jeremy Irons and whatever that was. and,
Yeah.
and then I remember like the second D&D movie was a sci-fi original movie called like Wrath of the Dragon God. And that one was pretty good. I didn't dislike that one. And then there was a third one I didn't even know came out with the Book of Vile Darkness. Did you see that one?
Bits and pieces. I don't know. I might have blocked them out.
Yeah, that one, like I found it in full on YouTube, like randomly. Like
Yeah.
and I was just like, what is this? So someone in the chat says like the Dragon Prince Netflix series. Yeah, like an animated ongoing series could be fun. Like take the concept that they introduced from the 80s cartoon, but like make it not campy 80s cartoon and make
Yeah.
it like a serious cartoon. I think that could do well.
Have you seen? There's a small, movie, like kind of like indie movie called Of Dice and Men.
No, I haven't.
Nothing to do with the book series.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm friends with a couple people that were involved with it, and it's really good. It's like a dramedy,
Mhm.
and it's more about the group, right, than anything. These
Sure.
people, and then like the game is the thing they would do. But then when they would do like, then they would be at the table playing the game. They would cut away from the group and go into the game,
Okay. See
which
that
is
I could get behind that.
was kind of cool. And I almost feel like something like that because because otherwise you're just not going to capture the D&D experience at all, and it's just another fantasy movie.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if that's like discussions they're having behind the scenes, but like I don't know. I mean, you make your movie, you could make it about Drizzt. That's gonna be some people are gonna love it. Some people aren't gonna like it because it's Drizzt. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like that's a story that, regardless of what you will say, that is a successful D&D story, and it has made many many books, including the new one that came out yesterday. Like
It's the only series they're still writing. Like it's the only
that,
thing
right?
they're still producing.
Yeah, and I mean, they can their publishing department like
Yeah.
for their own internal books, but I guess Bob Salvador is like, nah, I'm gonna keep writing, and
Yeah,
they're like, okay.
and they kept that going. Yeah. Doug wants to know: have you gotten into game design content, whether it's D&D, other games, or your own new game?
So I've been approached by a couple different groups that are doing like Kickstarter things to work on some stuff. I can't really talk about any of it yet, but what they've been bringing me in is more of like a mechan. I guess I'd call it a mechanical consultant.
Yeah.
Since some of my more popular stuff that people seem to really like is going in and trying to balance and adjust classes or races that are just way, whether it's power creep or not, off from other things we have. For example, like power wise, the dragonborn race versus like even a tiefling or a half elf or full
Anything
elf
versus anything.
versus anything. Yes, okay, all right. So good. We're on the same page when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So they kind of brought me in to say like, hey, we've written RPG stuff, we've written fifth edition stuff, but we've gotten comments that like this feels more like a 3.5. This doesn't fit 5e's feel. So can we run the content by you to see what you think? So I'm working on that, and I'm looking to get into doing either drive-through RPG or self-publishing through the open game license. Because I have a lot of stuff that I see missing, and on the base level, people want me to take all of my fixing stuff and compile it into a PDF and like release it. So because that's all D&D, that'll have to be DM's Guild.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to. I've been delving into creating. First time I've done it, my own homebrew world, which is one of the games that I do weekly, and like that's been really fun for me. But as with anybody making a homebrew world, like I'm great. We got all these cool concepts for combat, and somebody's like, "Can I make a history check to learn about this?" And I'm like, "Crap."
You have to make up a thing, and worse
Yep.
than making up the thing is I have to remember the thing.
Yes, exactly. I got to write this down for when they're like, "Well, didn't you tell us about that ancient, legendary, whatever?" And I'm like, "Yep."
I sure did. What do your notes say?
Yeah. What do you? What? Yeah. You tell me. What do you guys have down, just so I can make sure. Yeah.
No, that's lit.
So.
And it's tough too. It's tough. Like, YouTubing is a full-time gig, and you're a one-man operation over there.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
you're doing everything yourself, and then you have all the social media that goes along with it. So it adds up quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's I don't think it's unrealistic to say I probably devote 15 to 20 hours a week at least to just doing stuff because like I mean, I also have the benefit or detriment, depending on how you look at it, that I don't really script my content. I just sit down, turn the camera on, and go, and hopefully get it in one take, and then just call it quits. And that's how I'm able to put out content, daily, because I just sit down and I just go, and then it's on to editing. But like I said, that's amidst a 40-hour plus a week real job. So
Yeah, I know the process well.
yeah,
I
yep.
mean that was the early days. We would have a list and be like, all right, we're gonna talk about this, and we'd hit record and just like our early videos when there's like 3 or 4 of us on there are so terrible. When I've gone back to and watched some of those, I was like, oh my god, none of us ever get a full complete thought out because someone else will just step on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And And I was like, oh, how do people enjoy this?
Yeah, it's well, I mean, like there's definitely times like where I'll end the recording and it'll be editing and I'll be like, crap, I forgot to mention this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? YouTube comments will tell me that I did it wrong and just drive up engagement, so I'll leave it. Let's just go.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that. So now we outsource our editing, and it's like sometimes things come back, and it's like you have to make the decision: do I send this back for a revision and cost a day or two? Time's money, and
Yeah, sure.
Or do I let it slide? Or even more drastic, do I open up the editing software and see what I can fix?
Yeah, thankfully I've been able to get away with like a couple times where I'll be like accidentally mention something that's completely wrong on the rules that people will just continue to comment, and I'll be like, I'll use the very limited known YouTube edit comment and just cut that piece out of the video after it's been uploaded. And then people are like, wait a minute, where did that go? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It never existed.
Yeah, exactly.
So Brian wants to know, what kind of player are you when you get to play?
So that is usually a very rare thing. I mean, the shirt kind of says it all here, but I usually am a forever DM. And yeah, when I get to play, I try to be sympathetic with the DM and not like metagame too much. So I want to be like, I'll build my character, which is usually how I start, with like a concept for a character rather than like a full blown backstory, because I got burnt by backstory creation in the past where like I'll do it and the DM just ignores it. And that hurts when you're like, cool, here's my 3-page backstory, and the DM's like, yep, just throw that right away. So, I try my best to be, I grew up with 3.5, and at least in my experience in 3.5, roleplay was not, at least from what games I played, roleplay wasn't a huge thing. We were crunchy like roleplay happened, but it was like, yeah, my character does this. Yeah. We were like, it's combat, all right? How am I going to get out of this scenario? So I have that kind of crunchy tactical mindset. So I'd like to try to do that kind of stuff, but also be sympathetic with the DM and be like, I know I could push this, that the rule says differently, but I'm just going to let it slide because I don't want to be like, well, actually, let me push up my glasses and tell you that that's not how that rule works. And I'll just be like, yeah, it's whatever. Hands off. Let's go. Moving on. Let's keep the game fun. Keep going. So.
What non-D&D games do you like to play, or are you strictly D&D?
I don't get to play much outside of D&D, and obviously just being steeped in the YouTube of it, it's the majority of what I do. But I have gotten a chance to play and run other games in the past. There was the Cinematic Uni system did the Buffy the Vampire Slayer Army of Darkness RPGs, and I had ran a Buffy the Vampire Slayer series for 6 or 7 years offline throughout high school and college with my friends. So that was I was a really big fan of that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and it's actually cool because it's designed to be like you are the director. It's designed to be a show. So you run the sessions are called episodes, and you're supposed to design it like a TV show where you have a mid-season arc and you have a villain and you go through and tell it like a show. And that's how the system is designed for you to do cinematic things. And there are drama points to increase things and make things better or worse. And so I enjoyed that a lot. I have a long history with Palladium, specifically the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG. I was a big fan of that from Palladium. And I really want to get into World of Darkness stuff because I love the lore and the history behind certain different settings. And I don't have the time.
Yeah, we've dabbled with World of Darkness a little bit. The biggest drawback to me for World of Darkness is each one is a separate game.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I'm just a D&D player or whatever, but I just want to get the chocolate into the peanut butter and mix everything together. Why do we have to be vampires or werewolves? Why can't we have both?
Sure. Yep. And that's kind of why I like the more hunter side where you hunt the bad guys. You're the human doing that kind of a thing. But I've heard a lot of good stuff about Scion, which is you're like a demigod, descendant of a god kind of a thing, and that's a World of Darkness one. So I've been looking into that a lot.
Yeah. Well, no, they're all cool. My only pet peeve is they're all cool separately.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
We did attempt, and I think it went for a whole session We did attempt to mix all the things together because our GM was crazy enough to let us try.
Sure.
Give it a go. So we had mages and vampires and were creatures, and mages are just like ridiculous in comparison to everything else.
I definitely agree. I played I think a 2-hour session of mage one time. It was about the extent of it.
I'll just seeing if there's any comments.
Yeah, sure.
So, what do you got coming out this week?
I have a video actually coming out today that's about a cool new website that I learned about recently for finding RPG games. I mean, it could be in person, but right now it's mostly online. It's called startplaying.games. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's basically a place where people can go to find DMs, private games, public games. You can sign up as a GM. And basically you can say like, okay, you can set up games for free, but you can also set up like paid games to be like, hey, I'm a DM. You want to play with Nerd Immersion Ted? You can sit at like, here's the games I have set up. These are the games that I've got time slot wise. It auto adjusts time zones for you. And you'd be like, okay, it's, I don't know, $15 a seat. You can sit at my game, a drop-in campaign, or you can book me and say, hey, me and my party want to do 10 sessions of a D&D game. There's 5 of us. And you could just go and do that.
Yeah, I think, so we had Spike Murphy Rose on, and he's involved somehow with those folks. And he was telling me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm putting out a video just as more like an FYI, hey, this exists. Yeah. Because, like, again, if I wanted to play a World of Darkness game, I could go and be like, oh, hey, here's somebody running it. Let me jump in an intro game. And they also have it set up, too, where you could go find a DM. And turns out there's a bunch of different, like, D&D, Twitch, and YouTube content creators. It seems they're on there. So if you're like, oh, I really want to play a game with this person, you can go find them.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty cool thing. I told you about my waffle maker. So yeah. I got a D&D waffle maker review video coming out later this week.
You should totally do it in the style of your old cooking videos. I don't know what that style is, but you could do a throwback episode.
Yeah, it's definitely. We filmed a lot of the cooking side of that, so that'll be definitely a good time for that. And then I might be making another video on Curse of Strahd because I said my piece about the new revamped edition.
Yeah,
your $100 cardboard box with soft cover books inside.
No snark there whatsoever.
No, but a lot of people were like, "Oh." They seemingly just don't know. They said, I've been, they're like, oh, this is such a cash grab, whether or not it actually is. It seems like it is. But they're saying like, they said they were going to update all the insensitive cultural things that were in Curse of Strahd. And now they're packaging it only in a $100 special edition box. That seems like BS that I have to get it. And people don't know, like on Roll20 and D&D Beyond, those updates are live. They're out there. You can go see the updated text that they did. The errata exists. So I might just point people out, like, here is what they changed. If you want to go comment on it, it exists. It's already out there. So
yeah, I mean, I saw it and I vaguely know what it is, but I'm like, I don't know. The deck was like $20. The books,
$10.
Yeah, I know that's what someone corrected me too. But I was like, I don't know. The deck's like $20. The book's $50. Where's the other? This $30 coffin box.
Coffin shaped box. Yep. Yeah.
But
definitely.
What? My thoughts were like, oh, they're like, well, they're probably like, well, Beatles and Grimm is selling some expensive boxes. Let's see if we can sell. And I was also like thinking, man, I was like, what are those guys thinking? If Wizards of the Coast then turn around and they're like, you mother.
Well, it's interesting because I saw like the Beetle and Grimm or Twitter made a comment about something they're going to announce tomorrow at Gen Con, like online. Mm-hmm. And it was very heavily like vampire themed. Like they're like, it'll be missed. Yeah. Like, and they were like referencing like it's gonna suck. And I'm like, you guys doing a vampire thing too? Like right after D&D is like, we're gonna do it too. I don't know.
It might be the same box, like not the same, but
it's
based off of that. They're gonna do the $1,000 box.
Yeah, well, and my biggest complaint is like, as a video gamer and like a general gamer, we are used to like when you go to buy a game, you can spend $50 for the standard thing. It's just the game. And then you can spend like a little bit more to get like one thing. And then you can buy your $120 thing that comes with a statue. We're used to that. If this had come out when it started, like I would have bought the coffin box 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy it now after I already have the book.
Yeah. It is weird. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. All I'll say is keep an eye around October. I'm going to have a limited edition, one only giveaway for a TED custom Curse of Strahd. That's going to be the hardcover book with the $10 cards. I'm going to do a giveaway of something for that. So
there you go. Oh man, yeah, it's so weird. That was so out of left field too. Like,
and there's no marketing for any of this stuff.
Yeah,
like the D&D Adventure Begins board game. I don't know if you saw that that's coming out.
I did.
Like, there's no like announcement. It's just this is a thing. And like IGN is announcing that there's a Curse of Strahd box, and I'm like, what?
It almost feels like they just load a bunch of stuff into a cannon and light it.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I've always said like the D&D team is good at D&D.
Yeah.
Right? And then beyond that, not so much. And a lot of times, it seems like from the outside looking in that they're like, well, we got this thing that needs to be doing. Hey, Greg Tito, what do you know about streaming?
Right, yeah.
Greg Tito might be there like,
figure something out.
Not personally, Greg.
Yeah.
But, and then it's like, okay, now it's that person's job, and they have to figure out how to do it. Like, I know they would lean on D&D Beyond a lot for doing live stuff at conventions, more recently.
Sure.
Just because they were better at doing it, and
yeah.
And I don't think it was like an accident. It was kind of like it's kind of like one of those things when you're like you want somebody to do something and you pretend like you're gonna do it, but then you're like, hey, you're really good at this thing.
Yeah. It's it just the fact that I learned about this thing from an IGN tweet. Not like, and then I went to the Wizards of the Coast website to look for this box, and it wasn't there. Like, they didn't have it on their own website.
Yeah.
But it was on Amazon and on IGN, and I'm like, what's going on, guys?
I guess, I don't know. You're probably on their PR list as well, and they just, blast that out to everybody, and I guess they think that's enough. And that's how they're getting the word out.
Yeah.
But frankly, I think I'm like 3 emails behind and haven't opened up yet.
Well, a fun fact, I am not on their PR list. They don't send me anything.
Oh. Well, you should be on it because you talk about their stuff an awful lot and you're very up to date.
You would think so. It's not, and I'll tell you what, it's not for reaching out to Tito and other people being like, what do I do?
That's another Wizards thing. It's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, I've not to use the word cornered Tito at conventions, but I've sat down and been like, here's my card, let's have a conversation. And it just into the ether.
With that, I'm sure.
Sure, I'm sure.
Like I've also cornered Tito and Jeremy and different people. So they're constantly getting inundated with that. So it's like, here's another card with the rest.
Yep.
So I feel like they're probably just kind of overwhelmed.
Sure.
Yeah. Also, like comicbook.com, they always get like everything out first.
Yeah, it was interesting to see comicbook.com comment on an IGN article.
Yeah.
Because IGN got the exclusive.
Oh yeah. Well, so we kind of thought that they were connected somehow, and they just had the inside track, and we had them on the show, and we were talking, and they're like, no, I'm just good at digging this stuff up, and I kind of know where to look. Which was kind of cool. Like Theros, Doug totally called that one, and then like if you go to their publisher, you can kind of look and see sometimes things will slip through over there.
Sure,
and you can find it early.
Yeah, like the Rime of the Frost Maiden leak from a D&D Beyond trailer.
Then there's just accidents.
Yeah, right.
Oops.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if it was like actually a leak or like a planned leak to build hype for it. I don't know.
They're like, oops, what'll happen if I push this button? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
How do you feel about the newest book?
So, there are other spots in the Forgotten Realms other than like the Sword Coast and the North. If you want to stick in Forgotten Realms, there's a lot of other cool places. But it seems like, Drizzt has been here one time. Let's make that the next, like, Sword Coast,
Yeah.
Sword Coast, Sword Coast. But then again, they called it Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, and there's barely any Baldur's Gate in it. So, but that's a name people recognize. I'm excited. I'm excited for the setting of a tundra theme. Like
Yeah.
we had kind of a jungle vibe with Tomb of Annihilation. Now we're getting like an icy vibe. We had Ghosts of Saltmarsh, so we had water.
We had
I'm thinking probably the
Underdark.
next one's gonna be we had Underdark. I think the next one's probably gonna be desert. Maybe we'll do the
Yeah.
Anarok Desert because that's Sword Coast-ish as well. But the stuff. If I didn't have to keep hearing 320 pages, 50 monster stat blocks, 22 terrifying locations, like over and over and over again,
Yeah.
I think I'd be more excited about it. But it's just like they're hitting you with that every time. I mean, I love The Thing, I love horror movies, but I don't know how well that vibe that they're trying to emulate is gonna translate to a table.
I do like that with each adventure they do seem to grab like different elements to explore in the game. And
Mhm.
as someone who in 5e hasn't gone through anything, I just recently started playing Chris Estrada with a group. Um, we just kind of cherry pick stuff from the books.
Mhm.
So I do like that element. Like Out of the Abyss was great. If you're running an Underdark campaign, there's tons of resources in there you can just lift.
Sure.
And who doesn't love a roctopus?
Right, exactly. Sure.
So and like you said, we've already got some areas, and they gave us rules for that, and we'll get some more rules for dealing with the Arctic and the tundra, I'm sure. So I'm interested to see what they come up with. But yeah, I use very little out of that stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Just, what new monster spells, player options can we cherry pick?
Yeah, I mean, it says there's going to be some new spells, so that's something, right? And updates to the Goliath race, which is nice. But I'm curious to see if Drizzt is going to make an appearance in the book, because that again could be received very poorly, or
Yeah,
people will love it.
I'm so over Drizzt. He's my least favorite RA character at this point.
Yep. Yep.
I loved his like Crimson Shadow trilogy, Spear Wielder trilogy, Echoes of the Fourth Magic was really good. Up at a certain point, like I literally stopped reading the Drizzt stuff mid book and just, and I mean I was deep into it. I don't know how many books there are now, but I feel like I've read at least 15 books.
I think we're at 35
I
now.
might have read at least 20 books.
Yeah.
And I just
yeah.
It was whenever they jump forward into the future. That's like where I was like, all right.
That was a stretch, even for a D&D campaign. Like, that's a stretch. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I just lost interest. It's like, of all of his characters, Drizzt interests me the least.
Yes, agreed.
Actually, one of the books I really liked is one that I feel like most of the RA fans didn't. Like, I really like Spine of the World. I like the Wolfgar arc, and I was like, I like the fact that like he made him a human that had human problems that he had to overcome.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I don't know if it's true, but somebody in a taxi at Gen Con one time told me that when RA originally went to go bring the books to produce, Wolfgar was the hero.
Yeah, and it was going to be in the Moonshades because he thought that's what Forgotten Realms was.
Yeah, and then they're like, "What else you got?" And he's like, okay." And that's just as funny to me that was just like that big of a change to like write the Crystal Shard type series and then be like, "Oh wait, let's do the backstory after that." Like, yeah.
So like I said, I don't know if the Demon War saga that he wrote was so good.
I don't know. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's a completely different world.
Okay.
And you have these monks that use gemstone magic. So like they can only use magic, but they have to wield it through these gems, and different gems do different things, or different combinations of gems do different things, and not everybody can wield them. But they're also like martial arts monks too.
Okay.
So
All right.
it's definitely a bit of a different take, and their elves are more like fairies and fae,
Okay.
from myth and mythology. So it's definitely one of I feel like it was one of his best series. He actually came out with a RPG based on it as well.
Oh, interesting. Huh. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I'm not familiar. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm chomping at the bit to get some more of those other books and those other worlds where it's not tied to Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice. So
So
I don't know.
so what would you like to see from a D&D?
I mean, at this point, at least in my opinion, I feel like there's. I mean, I'm used to the times of 3.5 where book bloat was the thing, right? We had a book every month. We had to do content every month. Every book had new feats, new magic items, and stuff like that. And I respect the decision to go hard the other way, but I could use a little more. I would like more player stuff, whether that's subclasses, whether it's feats, spells, magic items. That's really what I want, and that's what I've seemed to see the most. Are people like, we want Player's Handbook 2, we want Xanathar's Guide 2. Because even if you were to just release that Unearthed Arcana class feature variants in a published book, so that you could do stuff and take all of the existing classes you have and just breathe brand new life into them by allowing people to do things differently with them. That I think would be the best part, the best thing I'd like to see.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna get a little bit of that. Like I feel like a player's handbook 2 type book is coming.
Yeah, and I think that's what they've kind of been alluding to with this. They said in their diversity in D&D article, there's stuff coming out later this year in a book we haven't announced. So I'm assuming it's a November release, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that Unearthed Arcana that had all those like optional rules in it. So I imagine that's gonna go somewheres.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to be received very well. We're getting all these new subclasses, and this is very reminiscent of the pre-Xanathar's time, where like every month it was subclasses and subclass revised and revised this, and then the final product ends up in a book, which is what I'm hopeful for. So I don't know, we'll see.
So I do see Wizards like moving in this direction that I find slightly irksome, where it's like you could have one ability stat, and why not one? And why bother with all the rest? It's like this one stat will be your good thing for everything, no matter what. And I'm just like, why?
Yep. I mean, the fact that we have really one, and if you count the Artificer, 2 classes that really need intelligence in the whole scheme of the game.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you got 4 people that need charisma. And everybody else needs wisdom. But
well,
then
it's not even like that too, and it's like it seems like they try to come up with a subclass to do away with the other 5 stats,
like the Hexblade doing away with everything with charisma.
Yeah, we did. The Artificer does that.
Yeah. Yep.
So we did a staff build, a staff fighter build, and it was during that build that I realized you can use any prime stat depending on your choices, except for Constitution. I'm like, fuck it, why not have a con-based attack for your staff?
Yeah, right?
At this point.
Yeah.
It just seems weird to me is all. Like, and then, like, they do that, and then you have, like, the monk that needs, like, 3 stats.
Yeah, sure. Yep. I mean, that's almost like a holdover. It's not as bad as 3.5, but, like, yeah, I need 3 stats to do what I need to do. I could be like a rogue and be like, oh, well, Dex is my thing, and I'm good. Or I could be a Hexblade and be like, charisma, and then nothing else.
I will beat you with the prettiness of my face.
Right, yeah, that allows me to wield my sword better. So here we go. Wait, what?
So Rocco wants to know, what do you think the optimal party size is?
I like 4. I've done 3, 2s, and 5s and 6s, but I feel like with 4 players at a table, 1, it seems to work pretty well at most tables just for logistical purposes. But I find that you're not going to get too much people talking over themselves with 4 players. And When you start getting larger groups than that, you start getting the split the party, and then half the table's waiting while the other half does the shopping, and the other half's in a dungeon or whatever. So,
Well, that's an interesting combination: the shopping and the dungeon.
I mean, I've had it happen. I had
I
had a
believe it.
party in Waterdeep where 3 of the 4 members went shopping, and the 4th one went into Undermountain. So I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think 4 to 6 is a good number.
Yeah.
Like, so at 6, I guess what I like about 6 is if you care about party roles, you can do the 4 core party roles and then have a couple of
Extras.
auxiliaries. The support roles. Well, I mean, it's less of a thing in 5e than it is in earlier editions. But
yeah, I think 4-2 keeps the combat relatively quick, or quicker, I should say. 6 people,
yeah,
6 people looking up what to do, and when you have 6 players, what your plan was at the start of the turn could be drastically different by the time it gets to your turn. And it also depends, I guess, too, on the people you're playing with, right? If you've got 6 people that like know it and know their stuff, then it's fine. But even if you have 4 people and one person, like every turn it gets to their turn in combat and they're like, well, hang on, they're flipping through sheets of paper and they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And you're just like, okay.
It also depends on the medium too, right? Like
that's true too.
If you're playing in person, it's easier to get away with more players.
Yeah, because you can read people and see what's going on, and you're not looking at every box in the screen online all the time.
Like in the game Ted runs, like we're usually like we've been 6 to 7 players. We've dropped down to 5, and that hasn't been as bad because, like you said, it's a bunch of experienced players, so we're able to navigate fairly quickly, and most of the players will have like a go-to thing that they're going to do to kind of facilitate and speed things up.
Sure.
So Doug wants to know what's the appeal of official content versus the enormous wealth of third-party stuff.
Well, I love third-party stuff, right? I mean, I love all the different companies that put out major releases. I like all the stuff that people are doing with different settings, doing like sci-fi with 5th edition. I love the DM's Guild. I can't keep up with the amount of content I have on there. Thousands of modules and new stuff arrives every day when I don't even ask for it.
Yeah.
And I love it, and I love doing that. But like, obviously, I mean, you know what? I can't even talk about it because I could say Wizards of the Coast does the same bad job with balancing of certain things. Because like third-party content, it's kind of hit or miss. You could have stuff that's balanced exceptionally well and it's great, or you can have stuff that's just complete garbage and like who thought this was a thing that you wanted to put out with your name on it? But again, I feel the same way about certain Wizards products. So again, that's how that is.
Do you have any favorite third-party publishers that are like
I believe it is as far as like actual published books, I like the Jetpack 7 stuff a bunch. I'm a big fan of their Legendary Dragons was a really good book that I enjoyed. I love Cobalt Press. Cobalt Press is I have a great respect for all the stuff that those guys have done, plus their own world that they've built. But like DM's Guild, there's a guy, I think it's DM Heavy Arms. He did like the Armorer's Handbook.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the biggest lacking things in 5th edition is crafting. Like it doesn't really exist. Like you can make stuff, but like, I mean, I liked when I could be like, okay, I need to spend this much money and have this things and I can craft this magic item. Or like, here's how I can use magical materials. Or everybody I know who's ever killed a dragon wants to skin it and use the parts for something. And there is no mechanic for that. It's just up to the DM. So I would love rules for that. And these kind of help deal with that stuff.
Yeah. Adventures Playground, they have a book that's all about using monster bits for stuff.
Okay.
And then, so I guess like the Holy Trinity, we always say the Holy Trinity for us is Frog God, Kobold, and Nord Games.
Sure. Yeah, no, those guys are all great stuff.
Yeah, and not to say that there aren't a lot of other good companies. 2C Gaming's really good. Jetpack 7's really good. I mean, at this point, there's so many different companies out there. The Deck of Many's a really good company.
Yeah, yep. I'm a big fan of Mage Hand Press.
Oh yeah,
Just I
Mage Hand
think
Press is another one. Yeah.
they did their dark matter, so their sci-fi 5e stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I like that.
Alligator Alley's another good one. They put out Esper Genesis.
Okay,
So
I think I've seen that actually. Yeah.
yeah, the art in it is gorgeous. It's some of the best art. And that's a little more science fictiony
Sure.
D&D. But yeah, and now I've seen 5e used for like horror, superhero games, futuristic games. Like they're using it for everything. It's completely against what I normally say because
Yeah.
like especially earlier on, we were like always being bombarded. How do I play this or that? With 5e, like Star Wars, you get that one all the time. I'm like,
Yeah, I just last night someone's like, "Hey, have you seen this?" And I was like, "Yes, I've seen
yeah.
Star Wars 5e. Thank you."
Yeah, and so like early on, I would always be like, I don't know, I would probably just play the Star Wars game instead of trying to turn 5e into it. But people don't like that answer as much.
No, people love their 5e, and I get it. It's a good system, but like I said, if you were trying to do, I mean, there's great resources like Kids on Bikes out there and other things like that. If you're trying to do like that style of game, and it's like I'm not going to try to make Stranger Things in D&D with a D&D system. Like it doesn't work.
There's
It's not really
Kids on Bikes game that probably would just do it better or something.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There's this whole idea of the descendant of a Greek god, that kind of a thing, like a demigod. There's no good way to do that in 5th edition, in my mind. Like everybody a human now, and we just try to figure out how we're going to make your god powers work.
Somebody's now going to set out to prove you wrong.
Well, yeah, of course, but like it's like, okay, you're a starting out like demigod, you're a first level wizard, you can do cooler things than most of those characters in those stories could do.
Yeah,
and it's just like, how do I balance this? I don't know.
Or you could just go like I think there's like 3 games that literally do just that pretty much.
Right, exactly my point. So, but a lot of people are new to RPG space because of 5e, so that's what they know. So that's what
they don't want to learn a new system.
Yeah.
Although I do get that to a certain extent because
sure,
when someone hands me a 400-page book, I'm like, I don't think so.
Yep. Well, I'll take my 1-page RPGs, thanks.
Yeah. What are you talking about, that Aussie gamer? I just read like his last comment, job interview, for example. But I feel like there's more context there that I missed.
Yeah.
But we are coming up on the hour mark, so we've got more questions. But final thoughts before we head on out?
Yeah, and this was a blast. I'd gladly come back if you need someone to chat with. I'm always around, and maybe when all this stuff ends, you're not that far away. So
no, we're not. We do like meetups and stuff occasionally. So
we should definitely make something like that happen.
Absolutely. So thanks for coming on. I'd love to have you on again, and this has been fun.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Definitely.
Stay nerdy.